Welcome back, everyone. It's still Friday. We're going to do a quick, I don't know how quick we'll get through it, but a set review of 2005 Press Pass NASCAR Racing. I was going through a couple boxes that I recently picked up from flea markets and started sorting through it. I was like, wow, there's quite a bit of the set here, and I double checked it, and the entire set was there. So we'll go ahead and just review it. And Press Pass always has had different ways of organizing their cards, and it looks like they did it by number, starting with 0 with Ward Burton, who was driving for Haas CNC Racing at the time. The Net Zero was a Chevrolet. They kind of hop back and forth between Pontiac and Chevrolet. We'll show you the backs. It has their race stats up through race 26 of the previous season, it looks like. Since these come out early in 2005, those would have been 2004 stats. Joe Nemechek, who was driving for MB2 Motorsports, I believe it was at the time. That team went through so many incarnations, it was difficult to keep up with it. Rusty Wallace, who drove for Roger Penske. I'm just going to keep these in hand instead of trying to flip them over. But you have Rusty Wallace driving for Roger Penske. Terry Labonte nearing the end of his run at Hendrick Motorsports. Got his last win there in 2003. Mark Martin, 2005 was supposed to have been the final year for Martin at Roush, but he ended up staying one additional season. Dale Earnhardt Jr., of course, the Budweiser's airbrushed off of everything here, and he was driving for DEI, but that would only last a few more years. Casey Kane, who was he was kind of like a faucet at Evernham Motorsports. He was hot and cold. You just never knew which one you were going to get each year. One year he might win 6 races, the next year he might struggle to stay in the top 20 in points. So it was a very, very polarizing time he had at Evernham. Scott Riggs ended up being his teammate later on down the road at Evernham. I think this was still when it was MB2. I'm trying to look at the patch. It doesn't have any team patches, but I'm pretty sure it was still MB2 at the time. It would be because it is a Chevy. Very, very young looking Ryan Newman there. Newman, of course, has the Alltel sponsorship. The Nextel patch is in black and white, so it doesn't stand out. If you look at all the other drivers, their Nextel patch is the corporate colors of black and yellow. But up next is Michael Waltrip, who is still driving for DEI. Greg Biffle was driving for Roush, and Roush was kind of like Casey Kane. He'd have a good year and a bad year, a good year and a bad year. And the Biff seemed to be very consistent on the mile-and-a-half tracks. That seemed to be where he would rack up most of his wins, places like Kansas and Vegas and Texas and those type of tracks. He did have a few short track wins. He did have the one win in 2002 at Daytona. Or was it 2000? It was 2003, I'm sorry, 2003 at Daytona in the July race. Matt Kenseth, former Cup Series champion, as is Bobby Labonte. Jeremy Mayfield, kind of a checkered / controversial time at Evernham, and basically his back half of his NASCAR career. 3-time Cup Series champion, Tony Stewart. There's Ricky Rudd, who drove for the Wood Brothers. They were hoping for some good results, and things just did not materialize there. Scott Wimmer was driving for Bill Davis Racing, had a 3rd place finish in the 2004 Daytona 500, which should be listed on the back, but other than that, not really. There you see Daytona 500, finished 3rd, but didn't really have anything else to write home about. Dave Blaney, who had a few career pulls and had a 3rd place finish, 2 3rd place finishes, one in that incredible finish with Craven and Kurt Busch at Darlington. I believe that was 02 or 03, I always get that confused. And then his other 3rd place finish was 2007 in the Fall Talladega race, the first restrictor plate race for the Car of Tomorrow. Jeff Gordon, 4-time Cup Series champion, 93 wins. Don't need to say much else. His teammate at the time, Brian Vickers, whose wife is amid a bunch of controversy in the real world, if you will. But we'll just leave that there. You guys know how to run Google. Kevin Harvick is next. Jeff Burton, so we have the RCR cars right here. And Robbie Gordon, who had 3 wins with Richard Childress. Surprisingly, his first one came on an oval. There is Ricky Craven, driving for PPI, Cal Wells' team. Boris Saad was a driver for MB2 part-time, had some good runs. Elliott Sadler was a driver for Robert Yates Racing, had a few wins while he was there. Sterling Marlin drove the Felix Sabates / Chip Ganassi car. Ever iconic Coors Light paint job. Casey Mears, also one of the Ganassi drivers, found limited success in NASCAR. Jamie McMurray was supposed to be their driver that took him to the top. He did eventually on his second time around, had 3 wins in 2010. But Jamie was one of those anomaly drivers that never cracked the top 10 in points. He had a super long career, but never cracked the top 10 in points. Jeff Green, who was driving for Richard Petty Motorsports, Petty Enterprises, whatever it was known as at the time. 2000 Busch Series champion, just lacked a lot in Cup as far as competitive rides. Kyle Petty, who was nearing into his driving career here. 7-time Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson. Ken Schrader, 1985 Cup Series Rookie of the Year. Brendan Gaughan, he was just recently on the Scene Vault podcast. Recommend you guys go listen to that as a 3-part episode. Learn a lot about Uncle Brenny on that episode. So pretty cool information there. Dale Jarrett, the 1999 Cup Series champion. Kurt Busch, the 2004 Cup Series champion. We're getting into the Busch Series drivers. So I'm going to set the Cup Series drivers down here. Start off with Jason Leffler, who was driving for Haas CNC in the Busch Series at the time. The 00 car. I believe he had just 1 career win at Raceway Park in 2007. Have to go back and look, but that's the only one that's coming to mind. I think he might have had a few more wins in the 38 car. But that's the first one. He was the first Toyota win in the Busch Series. Ron Hornaday Jr. driving for RCR here. It's always a big thrill for him to drive that car. There's a very, very, very young Kyle Busch. Looking kind of, sort of, fake happy right there, I guess is what you could call it. He's smiling, but he doesn't seem like he's very happy. He moves back to the Chevrolet camp next season. Mark McFarland, who is now a crew chief, I believe, in the ARCA series, was one of JR Motorsports' first drivers. MTJ, who was driving for Chance 2 and kind of hopped around a little bit, then eventually drove for Junior Motorsports and moved up to the Cup Series with DEI and has become a Cup Series champion. Tim Fedewa, who is now a spotter, I believe, for Kevin Harvick. I know he's with the SHR team. Jason Keller. Haven't heard much about Jason the past few years, but I'm sure he's still out there. Kenny Wallace, he's active on social media. David Green is an official now for the NASCAR Series. Casey Kane, of course, we talked about him briefly in the Cup Series drivers. Justin Labonte has 1 career Busch Series win. I want to say it was in 2004 at Chicagoland. Let's see here. There it is. Chicago. Boom. 34th to 1st, his only career win. Greg Biffle, former Busch and Truck Series champion. Now we're to the Truck Series drivers. Andy Houston. And this is what I like about the Press Pass, just the base set, what do you want to call it, the flagship set. That's what I liked about it. It's had all sorts of different drivers involved. It wasn't the same echelon of just all Cup drivers and then sprinkle in a handful of legends. It covered pretty deep into the 3 top series. So Andy Houston, son of Tommy Houston, Matt Crafton. This was in between his stints at ThorSport. Terry Cook, who eventually would be a start and park driver in the Busch Series. Tina Gordon, I think this might be a rookie, but boy, she was involved in a violent crash in Atlanta. You have to look that one up. Not going to say nothing about this guy. Again, you guys have Google. Jack Sprague, former Truck Series champion. Dennis Setzer, I think he had 3 runner-up finishes in the points. John Wood, who now works with the Wood Brothers team. He is one of the grandsons of the original Wood Brothers. A very, very young Carl Edwards. Now we're getting to the NASCAR, the Regional Series champions. Of course, some of these have been now defunct for a while, and some have morphed into some other things. So you have AutoZone Elite Division. What is that? Southeast Series, Jeff Foltz. Then you have the Busch North Series. This is now the ARCA East Series. So Busch North became K&N East, and then it morphed into ARCA East, so Busch North, Andy Santerre. This is now ARCA East. Justin Dirks, don't know much about Justin or about Jeff Jefferson. So those are some West Coast drivers there. NASCAR Featherlight Tour, Tony Hirschman. He's the spotter for, who is he the spotter for? Christopher Bell. He's spotter for Christopher Bell now. So we have NASCAR West Series. So this would have been they didn't have a title sponsor because they lost Winston. Mike Duncan was the champion that year, but this is now the ARCA Menards West Series. Looks like we got some car cards here, so we'll go through these really quickly. We've got Ryan Newman, Dale Earnhardt Jr., famed M&M's car of Elliott Sadler, Bobby Labonte, Rusty, Kurt Busch in one of the many, many Sharpie paint jobs, Kevin Harvick, Dale Jarrett, and Mark Martin. Now we have these Winston or NASCAR Scene papers. NASCAR Scene was a long time newspaper. Ran from something like 1977 till 2007, 8, 9, thereabouts. They had some really awesome papers. I've got quite a few of them that I've purchased. I used to have a subscription. Then I got rid of a bunch of them. Then I wish I wouldn't have got rid of them, but I didn't have space. So these were the actual covers from 2004. And it just shows you different highlights from the year. So these were actual, like I said, the actual covers of the newspaper. And they had some really in-depth articles. I'll show you the backs of those. Not really anything there, but it kind of gives you just a brief look of the race. Flying high, you got Jeff Gordon. Looks like he's jumping there, maybe. Is that his Sears Point win? Yep, or California Speedway. Victory Lane. So, and these cards, I didn't care much for these cards, but I felt that this part of the set was just maybe more filler. They could have done something different. So, Rookie Replay from 2004. Case Kane was 2004 Cup Series Rookie of the Year. Brian Vickers was the runner-up. Then you had Scott Wimmer, Brendan Gaughan, Scott Riggs, who had a rough rookie season. Then in the Busch Series, MTJ. And you have some nice highlights. This would be a nice one to get autographed. Richard Petty, 200th win. Then what's this say? In memory of Papa Joe Hendricks. That would have been when Papa Joe passed away. Kevin Harvick doing double duty with, there's Kevin and Elaine. It'd be nice to get both of them to sign that one. Does that say NASCAR's Liquid Gold? So, Sunoco Fuels. Nextel Cup Series. So, signing autographs there. Jeff Gordon. You have Terry Labonte and Justin Labonte in Victory Lane in Chicago. There's the Busch brothers with their parents. Rusty Wallace making a rare Busch Series start. Who do we have here? Michael Waltrip, Operation Marathon. Of course, Michael ran a lot of marathons back in the day. And this is the back end of the set, just with some playmakers. This would probably be a lot of the top drivers at the time. So Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Michael Waltrip, who had, did he win in 2004? So you're 1, 2, 3. No, he did not. He went winless in 2004. Bobby Labonte, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, who lost the initial chase for the Cup by 8 points. Ken Schrader is driving for BAM Racing with Schwann colors. Dale Jarrett. Then we have Unleashed, which just looks like some victory celebrations. Elliott Sadler, not really a photo finish, but it was a pretty close finish at Texas in 2004. He'd win later on that season at California. Is that Rusty Wallace? Jeff Gordon, is that California Speedway, perhaps? Looks like it. Yep, California. Richmond, perhaps, of Dale Jr. He had several wins there. Jimmy Johnson, burnout at Lowe's Motor Speedway, a.k.a. Charlotte. Mark Martin at Dover. Ryan Newman at Michigan. A few more here. Kurt Busch at Loudon. Jimmy Johnson once again, but at Pocono. And we have our Cup Series checklist. So there's one checklist here that actually has the 2005 Cup Series schedule and the 2005 Busch Series schedule. Then you get to the checklist with Junior, Jimmy Johnson, and Jeff Gordon. And then your set checklist. So now the video's over. I can stop and take a breath. you guys can get on with the rest of your Friday afternoon doing whatever it is that you do on Fridays. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Hope you do enjoy these set review videos where we just kind of go through, take a look at some of the cards, or take a look at all the cards in and whatever set we're looking at, and talk a little bit about each driver, crew member, owner, etc. As we can. Give everybody a little bit of love on the channel here, because that's what we like to do. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.